You're listening to Truly Noted, a Lindsay Glazier and Andrew McLean production.
I'm here with the Chief of Police for West Grey, Rob Martin. We will be discussing local policing in our municipality. Rob, thank you for being here. Sorry, can I call you Rob, or do I need to call you Chief?
You can certainly call me Rob. Thank you for having me here, Lindsay.
Thank you for being here. As you know, policing is a extremely controversial topic during this election, and so I thought if we sat down, we could get through some of the false information, and you could tell us more about the police services in West Grey.
Absolutely.
So I guess my first question is, can you just tell us a little bit about what the West Grey Police Services does for our community?
The West Grey Police Service, like many services across this country, is a community-based, community-focused police service. We do have community partners written on the side of our cars. It's not just a slogan on the side of our cars, it's our mindset and the way we do business. We like to describe it as in the community for the community. We provide a variety of policing services. We were discussing earlier that we have officers trained in everything from homicide to arson investigations, child abuse investigations in our CIB office. So we can provide a full range of policing services, but on top of that, we also engage with the community. The community is key for us. You can't have a safe community without having an engaged and effective police service. And we are very adequate and very effective, and we take our mantra very seriously. And we also believe in the West Grey motto that we need to work together to make this the best place in the province to live, work, and play. Our police service is very effective. We do a number of community events, but we're also able to enforce the laws, the Highway Traffic Act, the Liquor License Act. We deal with community complaints in a collaborative way with our partners in social services and public health. We know the opioid crisis is here. We know there's homeless issues. We can't solve these problems by putting handcuffs on people. There's no way you can solve problems without engaging your community partners and bringing them to the table to help us solve it in a big collaborative approach. It can't be a Band-Aid where we cover it up and forget about it. We need to seek solutions that are meaningful for the people that are affected and get them out of the situation they're in and let them have positive and productive lives.
What kind of proactive measures do the police take on a regular basis?
In terms of proactive measures, you have things as simple as our community foot patrol programs, our targeted programs in our schools. For our community foot patrol programs, they're not just on the main streets. We put them in parks, we put them in conservation areas, we put them where the issues are affecting our citizens, so we have a very visible presence. We partner with our snowmobile clubs and our ATV clubs to solve the problems on our trails. We know recreation is a huge part of living in this area, and we have to have that presence. We also do such things as sit on the situation table of acute risk. My inspector of operations chairs that presently. That deals with those people who have acute problems in the community, and it brings a table together for all of our social services partners to try to help those problems. We're very active in the community alcohol and drug strategy, the opioid working group. I am the chair of victim services for Bruce Grey Perth. There's a number of things we sit on, and I can't bring to the table what we do for community programs because we do so many of them. And it's not simply us trying to solve the problem. We can't solve the problem by ourselves. It's bringing the community together to solve the problems. And when I say community, I do mean our county partners as well in the bigger scope of things with social services and public health, to try to deal with those issues that are facing us in the largest municipality in Grey County and the best municipality in Grey County.
Thank you for that. I think people don't realize everything that goes behind closed doors. Tell me about crime in West Grey. What's our numbers like? What happens here?
Our crimes, actually this year I was very happy to report we had a significant reduction in both our violent crimes and our property crimes. We're seeing double-digit reductions. And I put that credit to my members who are out there every day with a visible presence and doing their jobs. So with those double-digit decreases, we also have to be careful that we don't become complacent and say there is no crime. We know that we see traffic issues as being a problem. Our community surveys put drugs as one of the major problems here. So we continue to look at, through our community surveys and community engagement programs and citizen complaints, where we need to be, how we need to deal with the issue, and what we need to do to get it done and solve the problem permanently for the community and not just Band-Aid over it. Crime is everywhere. We have to look at the factors that cause crime to be effective in dealing with it. Like I said earlier, we can't arrest ourselves out of an opioid epidemic. It's not going to work. It has been tried elsewhere and it's failed. We need to look at the root cause of what's going on, whether it be poverty, whether it be homelessness, whether it be an addiction issue. And those people that are addicted need to be put into the public health realm. The people that sell drugs and traffic in drugs, those are the ones that we need to target to make sure that doesn't keep coming into our community. But those ones that are truly sick through addiction need to be dealt with through the public health rather than the policing issue. And our focus is trying to get them out of our stream for law enforcement into that public health stream so they get the help they need.
Thank you for that. I heard, I read recently that proactive policing is actually one of the most important things to reducing crime. So guess next we'll just get into some of the OPP costing and the building and what everyone's been talking about. Explain the building, the police services building to me, the history of the building, what your building is in now, why we need one, and whatever you can share as succinct as possible for the community to hear.
Our building was formerly a public works building. It was built in 1952 for the purposes of being a public works facility. They used to repair transformers and other things inside of our facility. It was changed over when the Durham Town Police was patched over to the West Grey Police to serve our amalgamated community. It was supposed to be a stopgap measure for 2 to 3 years in 2002. It is now 2022. We're still in the same facility. The challenges we have is the facility, when first opened for the town of Durham Police, it was held for 5 members, and now we have 22 staff members plus a civilian working out of a building that is very aged. We do have some mold challenges in our basement. We have some flooding challenges. We have some pest challenges that are going along with that. The water is undrinkable in the building. There's parking challenges as well, and we're also on a floodplain for the river. We have had flooding issues with the Frazel Ice building up, and our basement does get very wet in the springtime. So our building is outdated. We need to look at a new facility. What that looks like, that is up to the municipality and council to decide, because all infrastructure and police buildings are their responsibility. But we also have to look at the safety of the prisoners we bring into our facility. Do our cells meet standards, which they do not? We are well aware of that. That's been pointed out by the Ministry of Solicitor General policing advisors already. And we are just waiting for some form of new facility to get our people out of where they work into something much more conducive to having a healthy work environment.
Yeah, definitely not just for, you know, your prisoners, that's important, but yeah, definitely for the health and safety of your staff. Tell me, what does your staff complement look like at West Grey Police Services?
Our staff complement right now, we have 20 constables and sergeants who are working the front line. There is an inspector and a chief of police in charge of operations, me being the chief of police. One civilian who works as our records manager, and we have one special constable who represents the West Grey Police Service in the courts in Walkerton. At the present time, we have no staff off on WSIB or occupational stress issues, which is a significant change from a number of years ago where we had 33% of our staff off on occupational stress injuries when I arrived to take the position of chief of police. We've done a lot of proactive work with mental health with our staff, and we are very fortunate to have the staff we have, being as dedicated they are to the community, and we're very fortunate to have them all back and healthy in their roles as functioning police officers.
Well, I know for myself, and I would hopefully say everyone in West Grey, you know, we're really appreciative of the work that you do, and we understand that it's not an easy task, especially over the last several years. Tell me about your policing budget. You guys are kind of the big ticket item, and you know what that's needed for.
We are not the biggest item on the town's budget. That is Public Works, followed shortly by Admin and Council's budget, so we're third. Yes, we did have an increase. Bringing people back to work and removing them off WSIB, we no longer have the subsidies from WSIB to cover their salaries. So as those members returned to work, we had to incorporate their salaries back in. And it's much better to have a police officer working the roads who's healthy than it is to have someone who's injured because of something that happened at work sitting at home, and we're very happy to have them back. But we also face a challenge where with growth, we know the town is growing. From the last census, we saw a 4.9% increase in our population. We hadn't hired anyone, so we did have council in 2021 approve the addition of 2 recruits for our staff, which brought our complement up. The other challenges we face are cost increases with our dispatch contract through the Owen Sound Police Service. Insurance rates went across the board up quite high. And we also saw the reduction in the COVID offsets that were used to stabilize, for lack of a better term, our budget that was used in the past. Those monies are no longer available to us. The benefit is, with our new budget proposal, we did see it, so we're looking at about a 2% wage increase for the proposed budget coming up, so we're not seeing the big numbers. But when you look at those bumps, and I will use the words bumps because they're one-offs, we needed that money to hire new staff. As we see our calls in 2020, we did 3,900 calls. In 2021, we did 4,300 calls. Up to this point now, we're already at 3,200 calls, so we'll surpass the 4,000 mark, I'm sure, shortly. But as call volumes go up, and when we based our budget, we also based it on what the health and welfare of our people, but what the town wants. The town said in our surveys, they want visibility and they want officers to be seen. We have to have officers in cars to be seen. We can't be seen as a mirage or drive-through policing where we show up when you're called. Having those extra members on staff has reduced the workload for our staff, leading to more healthier officers and visibility as it relates to the town. And we've also been able to engage in much more proactive policing. You'll notice in the media that we're able to assist the Owen Sound and Saugeen Shores for the arrest of a drug trafficker that was coming through our area and causing grief for Grey and Bruce counties. Without having those extra staff do those proactive things, it would be very difficult to get those projects done in a timely fashion or at all.
Thank you for that. You had mentioned about a survey, so you received feedback from the community, and then you guys have taken proactive measures to address the concerns?
Yes. We have to do one every 3 years. I would like to do them more, but they're very time consuming, eat up a lot of my staff's time. And the town has responded what they want. We've heard that they want to see officers. We're a very large municipality at 876 square kilometers, so we need our people to be out. They can't be on the main streets all the time. And we want them on the back roads. We want them in the small towns. We want them where people can see them, and it gives you the presence that we're everywhere when we're really not. But that presence and visibility is what people want to see. We focus on our school patrols in the morning, so every school gets attention every morning from our officers that are working, because it's important to make sure that our youth get to school safe. And it's also a great time for our members to engage with the youth. That was part of what the schools wanted when they responded. The town wanted action on drug enforcement. We've taken action on drug enforcement. We've been very successful over the last few years with some drug problems, removing challenges from our community who were causing grief for not only the area neighbors, but our partners and area municipalities all around us. And we will continue to work on that. Traffic safety came up. We engage in traffic safety programs every long weekend, and traffic safety is a priority for all of our members. So that's something else the community told us. We can't simply work in a silo where we decide what is important for the community, because that's not a community partner. The community needs to tell us what they want us to do, and then we have to action that at the wishes of the town.
Yes, and again, with the proactive, if that's what people, not only is that what people want to see, but then when the people do see them, the crime is lower. So I'm going to go back to the building for a second. So my understanding is that the costing was done for the building, the land was purchased, the design was approved, and you guys were just about to kind of dig to start the build. What happened?
The plans were done, the architects were hired. Our police building was designed on plans for other police facilities, which are not elaborate or Taj Mahals, anything to say, they're just simply functional buildings. The costing was started, and members of council decided to pause the process on the new facility pending what happens with our costing and see if we're having a takeover by the Owen Sound or OPP.
Do you feel that either way, whether West Grey Police Services stays or there becomes a building would no longer be needed?
If the community wants to have a police presence in town, they will have to build a facility that will meet the standards for any police service. If you're willing to not have police presence in town and farm it out to the city of Owen Sound and have our officers respond from there, that will have to be something the community brings up with their community council members.
Thank you for that. I personally would like to see community presence. During the design of the building, there was a, I think what was referred to as a gym, but I think it was more of a training facility. Can you tell us about that? I know that seems to be a contentious issue as well, that you guys wanted a gym, is what I think the public has been chatting about.
Unfortunately, when the plans were put forward, it was called a gym. It's actually, we were going to use it as a training room. Every year, police services are mandated to do use of force training, which is interactive and does involve rolling on mats and keeping up to date with techniques. We do our use of force training twice a year, which is outside the norm for most services, but use of force is one of the most issues that can cause me the most liability, so I want to make sure that our members are trained. The training room is somewhere where we do use of force training, our scenario training to make sure that we're able to deal with mental health challenges, our de-escalation training and things like that. There will be a workout component, but the equipment has already been dealt with and agreed to be purchased by the Police Association, not the ratepayers of West Grey. So there will be an area that officers can work out, for lack of a better term. It will be small. The training room will be bulk of it for our training purposes. But the equipment will be purchased by the association. And when you look at the collaboration between mental health and fitness, it's a very important piece. By maintaining your level of fitness, it makes you more resilient to those occupational stress injury challenges that come with working in emergency services. And it's important for our people to have that outlet and vent. And we also want to make sure that our members are in reasonable shape for when they do their jobs, because it also reduces workplace injuries when we're dealing with people that are less than happy to see the local police.
That's fair. Would the size of the building change whether or not you had that gym facility based off of the recommendations?
The change would be, there would be a change, yes. It would be a very slight change. It's not going to reduce a lot of square footage, but it would reduce it a little bit.
Where do you guys do your training now, like at the Durham gym?
We don't use the Durham gym. The challenge would be is, one, there's no storage for use of force equipment. Having a police car and an officer who is in uniform who then change out of uniform would result in all kinds of storage issues. And it's not conducive to having a member there, at least if he was training or working out or doing something in our workout facility. It's a secure location. His weapons and vehicle would be secure. And we're able to access him immediately if there's an emergency and get him back on the road as quickly as we possibly can. And
where do you guys do your training now?
We share training sites. We have a shared resource agreement with Owen Sound, Hanover, and Saugeen Shores Police. A lot of it is done in makeshift locations. We use the fire hall training room for some of it. It's small, it's not overly conducive. We have broken things, unfortunately, but it's what we use. We do have an outdoor range that we use, but most of our training right now is used at the fire hall attached to our station.
My next question, I know that this has been, so we had COVID, which has been very stressful for everybody. And then, coming out of COVID, your team, who's been waiting for, it sounds like almost 20 years for a police building, you're expecting the ground to be dug, and then all of a sudden this OPP costing comes. So one of my biggest concerns in this entire thing has been how our community police are. They're members of our community and how they're doing. How's morale over there?
We're fortunate to have a very high-functioning team who wants to make a difference in their community, and they realize that they are an important part of the community. Yes, taking the building away hurt morale. I'm not going to lie. Having a costing presented on December 21st, 4 days before Christmas, was hurtful to my members as well. Morale did plunge. They are still waiting to hear. You have a group of officers who want to be members of the West Grey Police. So we have done surveys, and it's unanimous that none of our members want to join the OPP if they can avoid it and stay local police officers. But it did hurt the morale. It didn't hurt our business continuity. It has not hurt our functions. And we are simply now in a wait and see to see what happens with a number of their careers. Most of our officers live in West Grey. We have a number of officers who come from third-generation families in West Grey. And when you hear comments like, suck it up and they will move, as was made by one person who's running for council, it is hurtful to my staff. Other comments, such as calling us tenants in the building, was hurtful to my staff. But my members are big enough to get over those comments and do the job that needs to be done and make sure that we ensure the safety and well-being of the citizens of West Grey.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that people have, I work in municipal government, and people don't realize the impact of their words. Or sometimes they do know their intentions, but they don't realize how hurtful it could be. And, we're all just trying to do our best, just like other people are doing at their jobs. So what would happen if OPP took over? Like, what happens to your staff? Do they have jobs? How does that work?
All of my staff, from my position down to the bottom, would have to reapply to the Ontario Provincial Police as if they're recruits.
Okay, what about you and the other, high-ranking inspector?
We would have to go through a rank determination board to see where we would fit into the OPP rank structure. So I don't know where that would be, and I'm not familiar with the rank structure board process. But it would fall in somewhere, depending where it is, and if we even get jobs. We know the OPP are critically short-staffed, so I'm sure our members would get them, but having to go through after being a police officer for 20 years and provide references and do all the same checks as a recruit is a bit demeaning to my members, I do think. They've served the community well. We are all trained to the same standard in the Ontario Police College. So we've heard things about if we meet the OPP accreditation. Our members already have. We hire according to the constable selection process for the province. So our hiring standards are exactly the same as the Ontario Provincial Police for the members we have. So it's not a matter of they won't meet the accreditation. The benefit, if we were to go to our provincial partners, is we have provided a lot of training to our members. All of our members are trained in basic criminal investigations, search warrant interview course, which a lot of frontline officers in larger services won't get for a significant period of time.
Yeah, okay. Is there any additional training, that your staff has to go through?
We train constantly. We train based on what our needs are going to be, and we look at the trends coming out of the year previous to see what we need. We do have an elder abuse investigator. We have a number of child abuse investigators. We have sexual assault investigators, homicide investigators, death investigators. But every time we look at what we need as an organization to meet the demands put to us by the community, it's based on our experiences in the past. It's not simply we provide training just because. It's to meet a need in the community and make sure that we are still able to meet those community needs going forward.
Okay, I want to talk about costing a little more specifically. So there's rumors, and I'm not sure if they're true or not, but that the OPP kind of bills per service almost. How does that, if that's true, how does that kind of work with how West Grey does their costing and billing?
Our costing is, and our community liaison officer, also known as our school resource officer, is not an extra. It's something that our member does. We provide 75 hours at a minimum to each school every year and goes out. So that's not an extra. Traffic safety is not an extra. It's part of your job. Big investigations are not extras. It's part of the job, and we try to keep our overtime at a minimum through either innovative staffing solutions or redeploying of people to meet those demands. The OPP bill on call for service, and they bill for extras that you want, such as a school resource officer or more traffic safety or things like that, whereas we are being paid to be your community police service. If you want traffic safety and you do make a complaint, which we track, we do take actions on it to make sure it's a valid complaint. The schools want us in the schools. Our schools are a footpost for our members, so you will see a member of the West Grey Police in your schools pretty much every day, or in front of the schools helping with the school patrols, because the youth engagement that we get out of that is priceless for policing. Because when the youth grow up trusting the police and having faith in your police service, rather than they see them once a year, when they see them every single day, it builds that trust and it builds that community growth. We have to be seen as being in the town. As I said earlier, to have a prosperous community, you have to have engaged police service that wants to be here and wants to do the best for its citizens. If you contract out to the OPP, and I'm not saying the OPP has a bad service, I do know a number of people and they provide a great service, but they do things differently than what we do. We're in the town, we're here local, our headquarters is located right in the town of Durham. We have an Ayton substation, and we do foot patrol in all of our areas to make sure we have that presence. And when we do foot patrol, it's not simply walking and ordering a coffee, it's talking to people on the streets, talking to our community businesses, finding out what's going on, and that's a great intelligence tool for any policing service. In terms of the costing itself, we do things a bit differently because we're engaged and we're here. We're not coming from a different county, or we're not coming from a different detachment due to shortages or staffing shortages. We're here, we're present, and we're 24/7 for West Grey.
Thank you for that. I do know I see your members at the school in Ayton every day. My next question is regarding I think people have a misconception of council's role versus the police services board, and who is responsible for what, and who you report to, and what all that is about. Can you explain that to me a little more?
Under the Police Services Act in Ontario, I work for the Police Services Board. The Police Services Board is made up of council members, community members, and provincial appointees to oversee the budgetary matters of the police service, and they set the direction for the police service. So when I was hired, I was advised that we want a community-focused police service, which we've endeavored to strive and provide. Council's responsibility is to provide adequate funding for that police service to be adequate and effective as defined under the Police Services Act, and to simply provide the infrastructure, vehicle and cars, and the funding for it. It's the separation between governance and the judiciary arm, which you need, so you can't have elected officials directing your police service, which would be problematic in some situations.
I also want to get some clarity on, there's this report that people keep saying that was never, and information wasn't given to council that was needed. Is the police, like you and the police board, withholding information, or is that a police services board, or what's that all about?
I've heard the reports that information's being withheld. That is up to the Police Services Board. We don't withhold any information. Every month when we report, and they're publicly available, our budget documents are posted online, available for people to read with our agendas of the Police Services Board, along with our stats. And also the chief's report talks about the highlights or lowlights of what happened the month before. So I don't see the accusation of the police service withholding information to be true. I know our board is very transparent and accountable, and they would be happy to share information, but there needs to be clarity on what people are asking for. To simply make a blanket statement, you're withholding something without telling us what we're withholding, it makes it very hard to respond to.
Yeah, and I also think, I'm pretty sure the Police Services Board is volunteer, and as somebody who is an active community volunteer, a lot of these people, they have full-time day jobs, so it's really hard to, if you don't have the information that you need and you only have a short amount of time available, how are you supposed to provide that information in a timely manner? Another rumor, or truth, who knows, we'll find out in a second. Are you hiring 8 new staff members as reported by council in a recent meeting?
No, we're not. There was some pre-planning done with the Director of Finance, and we did say the number 8 over a period of time. But those 8 are to replace members that are facing retirement. We do have 7 members who are going to be leaving their service after 30 years if they wish. And if they do leave, we will have to replace those members. We're not hiring 8 new members. We're not asking for new hires in this budget. The 2 that council were agreeable enough to give us this brings our staff complement up to where we are able to provide adequate and effective policing. If the town booms and we have growth rates and crime rates go up and calls for service go up, we'll have to re-explore that number. But at the present time, we're not planning on hiring 8 new members as reported.
I think where that rumor might have come from is that the building could accommodate up to that many additional staff for growth in the area.
Exactly. To build a building which barely fits your complement now would be a waste of money. And what we would like to do, and we talked about this at the Police Services Board, is to build a building that we do not have to add on. We do not have to have extra costs coming to the taxpayers because it's big enough to accommodate our growth for a number of years into the future. So we don't have to keep coming back and ask for money for changes. We would like to have a building that we can move into and be there for a long number of years before we have to make any changes at all, because buildings are expensive. We've heard numbers. We know the budget for the building is $8 million. It's not 13, it's not 15, it's not $20 million, because it keeps going up every time we hear more reports. But we've been allotted $8 million for the building. If we can bring it in below that, that would be fantastic. It's an expensive item, but it's a piece of infrastructure that ensures your community has an effective and present police force into the future for a number of years.
You know, as you're saying, the condition of the current building is not great, and I think, you know, this is just a necessary thing. It's future planning. What would you? I've been at so many places where that kind of future planning wasn't done, and then, you know, now we have 2 buildings that we have to manage, which is much more expensive. Is there anything else that you want to chat about with me?
No, I appreciate the time that you've taken. I appreciate the invitation. We do have to realize that West Grey has had local community policing since 1892. The town of Durham Police came into existence in the early 2000s. So for 130 years, you've had community policing. I'm hoping that we will have community policing for at least another 130 years. We are very happy as West Grey Police to be partners and be serving the community we serve. Is an excellent place to live. But our members 100% do not want to join another agency. They want to stay as your local town police, serving your local community and being in the community for the community.
Thank you so much for your time. I know everyone's going to appreciate it. And, you know, it is such a controversial topic in this election. And, you know, I thank you so much for taking the time to come out and speak with me today.
Thank you.